As we start to approach summer, we need to put in place some kind of a routine and stick to it to make sure all these plants reach the full potential as they're growing and there's no problems later down the line that we could have avoided. So we need to start and think about feeding at regular intervals and set a certain day to be doing that. Whichever day suits you. For most people that's going to be a weekend. But you need to maintain some kind of consistency as you go through the season so you know that every plant has had an equal share of attention. And that goes for things like making sure that everything is tied up properly. Everything's fed at regular intervals. Once they start to develop flowers and get taller, that's when they're going to need more nutrients. So you could write it down in a book what you do on what days, or choose to do everything all on one day, depending on your schedule. And I'll show you some of the things that I do on set days, so I know that everything's been taken care of as best as it possibly can. So this is one example. This cucumber plant has now started to flower, but it's not completely upright. And you want to keep these plants especially off the ground because they will get attacked by slugs and these bottom leaves are going to rot. This is a first leaf, so things like this need to be taken away because they will attract slugs. And as you can see, it's laid like this. All these leaves are going to be continually moist as you start to water more through the season. So just as a quick fix, just make sure your plants are stood upright. Pop a little cane in or something like this so they're upright, and then tie them to this as they grow, and then add a taller one to accommodate the growing plant through the season. So when you tie it up, everything is off the ground. And then of course, because it's flowering, it needs feed. Diluted tomato food's perfectly fine, once every 14 days. All your plants that you've got growing in pots are now going to start and grow a lot faster. So you need to keep checking the bottoms, because when those roots start coming out the bottom, it's time to move them on. And you'll get a bigger, better plant by doing that. So into something slightly larger, just to accommodate that root system, will do the job. Also, other plants, constantly check the bottoms for leaves that are past the best. Take them off. On any plant, they don't need those anymore. And the clearer you keep that bottom, the less susceptible they are going to be to disease later in season. And always check under all your leaves for aphids. That's not a problem that's going to go away. But if you look under all your leaves, you'll find any eggs that's laid or insects that are gathering around stem. Obviously, as it gets hotter, your plants are growing at a much faster rate, like these alderman peas. They've all now started coming into flower, but more importantly, they've now virtually reached the top of this cane structure, and we keep tying them off as we go just to keep them in. We don't want the plants falling over. So that last string's there, but now the plant's in the top, so you want to make sure you keep tying the string so that these plants don't topple over and break their own stems. And then we've got these which are bush cherry tomato plants. Because they're in containers, they're going to dry out a lot quicker, especially since now the temperatures are going to be increasing between 70 and 80 over the next couple of weeks. So we always make sure that they've got enough water. And make sure you keep on top as well of your maintenance on your tomato plants, like the side shoots that we take away. They will keep coming constantly throughout the year. They don't stop, and if you miss one, it will just turn into a big branch and you won't get any fruit from that. Your flowering stem is just above this side shoot, so that needs to be taken away. And they'll just continuously keep trying to put out side shoots all through season. So you have to come back to them every week and check them. And also take away these bottom branches as they're growing. So that creates better airflow underneath this plant. And you'll keep doing that as it's growing. And then you can see around the bottom of your plants. And you can remove any weeds that are growing. Ultimately, you'll end up with a much healthier plant that will give bigger yields in the long run. And again, we have some more cucumber plants, and these are growing quite long. So we want to let these grow upright, not across the floor, because if they're growing across the floor, once they do start fruiting and your cucumbers keep getting wet, they're going to start to rot, and again, that's going to attract slugs. So you're better off growing them vertically, using cane structures, something like this. And when it comes to your French beans, they'll now start to flower, and each flower will become a bean. And once your beans get to about 3 inches long, you need to pick them on every plant that you're growing, because if you don't pick the fruit from bean plants, they'll stop producing flowers. And then you won't get any more fruit season. So again, nominate a time, a day, to do a little pea harvest or a bean harvest to make sure these plants keep producing for you. These have been cleared this morning by me. We did them last week, but we've got more leaves growing. The plant's now getting bigger. So we've gone through again, removing all side shoots, and took away some more of these bottom branches, because they're going to serve no purpose. They're never going to grow any fruit. And just keep doing that until you've got something like an 18-inch clearance from the first set of leaves on your plant to the ground. And of course, when it comes to things like brassicas, you need to be constantly checking these for infestations. Cabbage white butterflies, eggs and things like that, caterpillars, that will basically destroy your plants if you don't get on top of it. And although we use netting, there's always a chance that one might find its way in. So if it does, deal with that straight away, or you'll end up losing the plants that's took you so long to grow. And if you've done rows of carrots as well, you're going to need to start and thin these out. So you want to leave your big plants and then take away any small ones in between, like that. And then you can create an inch or so's gap between each plant. We'll take that one out as well. And there's a small one right there. It doesn't take long to do this, but it has to be done. Small one again right there. So now we've got a gap between these plants, so you'll get some decent sized carrots. And just keep doing that as they're growing, just removing every other one. And make sure you put your net back down properly as well, to keep those cabbage white butterflies out. Also keep an eye on your strawberry plants, especially ones under the leaves that are sat on ground, and if you can, just lift them up so they don't rot on that wet compost. And you want to check your strawberry plants daily if you can, because when your strawberries start to ripen and go red, they won't last long when the birds see them. So make sure you get there first. And if you're growing peas in containers as well, make sure you're always giving them that support to keep them off the ground. Alternatively, if you're growing peas near sweet corn, you can let the peas wrap around the sweet corn as it's growing, and it will provide that plant with all support it needs. And in return, peas and beans expel nitrogen, which the sweet corn feeds on. And that's a companion planting situation. And obviously your raspberry and blueberry bushes, same thing as your strawberries. Keep checking them for fruit season, because you're not growing fruit for birds, are you? You're growing it for you. So don't miss out on the chance of a little harvest like this, covered with leaves, so you don't really see it. So make sure you have a good look. As soon as these fruits are ready, you need to take them before something else does. And make sure that you're always growing some backup salad leaves, because through summer you'll run out of these pretty quick, so you need to make sure you've got some to put back in ground while you're harvesting the ones that you've already grown. And also you can start and grow some more brassicas for planting out in autumn. And of course the obvious one is weeding. If you let that get on top of you, it's going to create a lot bigger job than it needs to be. So you can just make a diary and create a list of jobs that need to be done, some weekly and some every other day. So flowering plants, make sure that you get a feed, a diluted feed according to what it says on the instructions, and then start to repeat that process every 14 days throughout the whole season. Keep a check out for these pests on your plants and make yourself up some homemade pesticide so that you can deal with them as soon as you see them, or they will ruin your crops. Make sure everything in your containers is adequately watered. You don't want plants drying out completely through summer, because they could start to drop flowers because the plant's stressed, and that flower is a potential fruit. So make sure you keep on top of that, especially in these containers, because they will dry out a lot quicker than everything else. Keep on top of that plant maintenance. Any lower leaves, especially on tomato plants, take them away to create better airflow. Dead and decaying leaves on any plant throughout your garden, take them away, put them in compost, because they're just going to attract slugs, which is then not only going to eat the yellowing leaves, they will move on to the elfy leaves, causing you a big problem that you could have potentially avoided. And make sure all your plants that need support have got that support. Keep them off the ground wherever possible, and grow plants vertically. And any peas or beans that are starting to fill out and grow taller are now getting a lot heavier. So in the event of a sudden downpour, that plant is going to get heavier still, and it's got then a better chance of falling over and breaking the stems of these plants that's took you months to get to that size. And keep an eye on your potted plants as well. Don't let them get root bound. So that's a few things that you could make a list of. Pick a day that suits you to do those jobs, but make sure that you do them. Otherwise, you're fighting against yourself throughout the season, just for the sake of a bit of maintenance on a set day, on a weekly or 2 weekly basis, depending on what the job is. Anyway, I've done a lot of my jobs this morning, but there's always something else to check. So I'm going to crack on now and have another look round some of these plants, just to make sure everything is exactly as I want it to be. And if you want to keep following this channel and seeing what happens with these plants as we go through summer and into autumn, then please just hit that subscribe button, press that notifications bell, and we'll see you at next update. You all take care. Thank you.